This is Off
This is Off Planet Radio, Off Planet TV. I'm Randy Moggins, and the website is offplanetradio.com. The new American Revolution is about to begin. We're going to rock and roll in this country. Getting past the debacle of the election, however you view that, in Trump America, the big issue is what's going to happen now? Because there are issues that aren't going to wait for the inauguration. There are issues that have been festering under the surface for a very long time in America. And I'm talking about Standing Rock, the situation, everybody, this Dakota and South Dakota, why this is going on, what the issues are with the pipeline, and how this relates, interestingly enough, to a pretty much hands-on approach that is going to commence in the early part of December as a result of an initiative that has been taken by some very high-level powers in sort of, let's just say, parallel to the government. We'll leave it that way. And it has to do with free energy. It has to do with liberating the people of the United States. And it all had to begin with the first peoples here, the Native Americans. Here to talk about this is somebody who's been on the show numerous times over the years. He is probably the person with his finger on the pulse in terms of free energy, and he is also an insider in terms of what is going on specifically in the Lakota Nation. We welcome back to the program James Martinez. James, welcome, and feel free to just unload, my brother.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I'm currently doing the rounds right now with multiple radio stations, TV, all over the United States to prepare everybody for what is going to occur December 4th through 7th at Standing Rock. And it's basically an announcement and a call out, not only for individual supporters of what's going on there, but specifically for veterans. And the reason why is the following things are taking place, unbeknownst to still most of the United States, its population, and other parts of the world that are going to be affected by this. And that is what we're seeing now is the post-mass confusion and distortion of ideas and realities that's happened since the election, and the violence and the screaming on talk radio, and who does Donald Trump think he is, and who the hell does Hillary think she is, and all this other nonsense, most of which, as you know, is staged violence.
Right, exactly.
Right, so staged theater to affect the perceptual decision-making process and value system of the general public. So what has happened is, as you know, and other people that I've spoken to privately about it, I've been one of the energy advisors for the Lakota Sioux. And many years ago, I was asked to go speak before the 7 council fires of the Lakota Sioux, at which I was invited and privately met with their governments and inner workings of the tribes, and got to know them as a person and as an advisor of sorts. And what we have coming up with the Veterans Administration and Veterans of the United States is a call-out organized by Wesley Clark, who is the son of the 4-star general, General Wesley Clark, who is also a veteran who I was introduced to in Los Angeles after traveling previously before I got there, to basically meet with him and debrief him about precisely what was going on with the Lakota in terms of how they were responding to the enemy. The enemy being specifically, which is it's not being really talked about in the press, is the Dakota Access Pipeline. Okay, all right. Well, who owns it? Who runs it? And who are the financiers behind it? Nobody really is addressing that because everybody's afraid of it. They're afraid of going head-to-head with those people because they are the international banking cartels responsible for much of the damage done not only globally but financially worldwide for a long period of time. And they are using the weakest link of the United States to steamroll their operations and make an example out of the sovereign nation of Lakota Sioux, the third poorest nation on earth, according to the Lakota Sioux. Now, let me backtrack a second here. I got involved with these people because I was involved very directly by the late Russell Means, who is their last real notorious, gigantic leader, who ran for president, who was at Wounded Knee and became quite famous for standing their ground. So when I met with Wesley Clark about this, he knew that, and I went into my whole history, and he said, we need to do something substantial to unite everybody and make a stand, not only to bring everybody in America together, but also to tell big banks that you're done. We're not going to put up with your crap anymore, period. And we're certainly not going to put up with the numerous human rights violations that the Lakota Sioux have suffered while standing their ground on their own territory, their own ground, based upon agreements that they've had with the federal government for a long time. And the main agreement that has now been violated, which was not violated up to this point, was the Fort Laramie Treaty between the Lakota Sioux and the federal government, which was passed by Congress, agreed upon, and this was what made the Standing Rock tribe unique, is because they were holding their ground, keeping the sacred Black Hills, keeping that whole area a special place, a sovereign place. And prior to Russell's death, and I'll say this for the first time on the radio, Russell Means had a very long bout with cancer, but then he beat it and went public and said, I'm okay now. And then a short time after that, he went to the United Nations to change his political position for the Lakota Sioux. 6 months later, he died. Okay? And I'll let everybody else figure out what that means. Okay, so here we are today. We've got hundreds of tribes that have come together from all over the United States, and some of them are outside of the United States, to this central location, all defying the big banking cartels that are doing this to the people and not following any rule of law. Now, prior to the election, neither presidential candidate paid any attention to these people. They were ignored by the entire process.
Yes.
Which made me make a decision that, because everybody thought I was going for Trump, and I'm going to put my vote in for Trump. And I actually didn't vote because of this situation, because he left them out. So what the plan is veterans from all over the United States are going to come stand the line unarmed, in full dress, with the Lakota Sioux before all the private contractors and mercs and hired guns by the banks, and say, we are not going to take this anymore. We're going to stay here for 4 days. We're going to have international press conferences. There's going to be ceremony, and we're going to bring this country together, period. Now, as of today, I've been told that both the White House know about this, and Donald Trump's transitional team met about it today. Tomorrow I'm going to have more details about what that is going to mean. But as you know, and many people know, Donald Trump is going to be blamed for everything, including the sun coming up tomorrow.
That's right.
By the international banking cartels and the people that have defied him because he had a different opinion and a different agenda, and he wasn't exactly going for world government, which is what this whole game is about. So this is going to be a historical event. I'm letting everybody know on your listening audience, anybody that's listening to this archive, whether it's delayed streaming tomorrow, please feel free to move this information through the electrical grid of the internet or anywhere else, because this is really a plan to bring America together. And it's bringing America together at this central point with the real Americans who had a role in putting our Constitution together, fought in our wars, and have basically been fighting genocide from our own federal government for their entire lives. Okay, so they have the moral high ground, not the banks, not the president-elect, not the current president we have. They didn't do anything. Because as far as I'm concerned, I know that President Obama met with Standing Rock and came to actually see them, and now has betrayed them. Because I met with Chairman David of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe in Washington, D.C. before he went to the White House, and I know they were on good terms at that point, and he did veto the Keystone Pipeline. However, now everything is in flux, and the entire population of America and the world, they're going to get to see something really special that's going to get ready to happen.
Now, this protest began as a result of, this goes back to April of this year. And basically, the protest began on private land at the Standing Rock Reservation, and that was LaDonna Brave Bull Allard who began the camp, which was on her private land, and then it sort of expanded out from there. So we've had pretty much an occupation on the Dakota Access Pipeline since spring of this year. Now, in all of this, in the midst of all the hubris and all the pain and angst and vetting and leaks and all the bullshit that's gone into this election, the smoke screen has been so thick. But the real, the one group of people we've left out here in this indictment, and that's what this is the mainstream media, which has given us scant, if little, almost zero attention, and certainly not the kind of attention to inform the American people about what the real issues are in this. Because I think part of the challenge that you face and that I face as a communicator is to articulate the real issues that sit underneath the surface of this, what this is really about. This is private corporate interests and big banks who want to roll another pipeline through these sacred lands. And this pipeline, in effect, is not part of the plan to make us less dependent on foreign oil, as it is, in fact, to move petroleum across this expanse for private interests and, in fact, actually foreign interests as well. Feel free to jump in here and kind of, pull some threads from that, James.
Right. So as you know, the strike point for me as a kind of, I would say, communicating sniper has always been the banks.
Media assassin that you are.
Correct. And I am going to aim all the attention on the chief executive officers and shareholders of the people that are doing this. And I will not limit myself to going on Donald Trump's case either. Because if he really wants to become the leader that we all hope he can be or could be, then he's going to have to do the noble thing and the righteous thing and follow the nationalistic ideals that he's spoken about for a long period of time, and go for the jugular on the people that are actually doing this. Because at this point, there needs to be a collective win-win scenario so that this pipeline is either stopped or suspended or renegotiated in a different way. Because frankly, you and I know if they really wanted to build a pipeline from point A to point B, they could have done it and nobody even knew nobody would even have known it happened, because they had all that advanced the same technology they used to do the tunnel.
Underground, dumbs.
Yeah. They could have done that if they wanted to, right? We both know that.
Deep underground boring systems.
Right.
Yeah.
We know that technology has been around for a long time. It's fully available. They didn't want to do that because it's more expensive, but they could have, and they didn't even have to tell anybody about it, and nobody would even known about it. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's a slap in the American Indians' face that they're doing it in this shoddy, pathetic, cheap, destructive way that they're doing this. Because they could have done it a different way. If they've just got to do this, they got to keep the oil business going. They could have done it a completely different way, and nobody would have even known about it, and everybody would have a nice day. But no, they're not. They're destroying the land. They've desecrated their land. They've violated all their rights. They've hired, as we've seen, private security, and even a sniper. I mean, I know about the 11-year-old boy that was shot with a rubber bullet by these contractors. Now, these people that are responsible, there's not been any official statement from these people anywhere. Of course not, because they're sitting behind a desk somewhere in a foreign country, adding digits up and how much is in their bank account and making their shareholders happy without any responsibility whatsoever for the action that they have done by destroying the culture, American culture, the original Americans that were here. There's over 200 Native Americans in the United States. I had 6 minutes allocated with Trump prior to the election. Now, it's fair to say that there is in American Indian politics, and a lot of them have limited information on what's really going on. In fact, a lot of them have limited information about what's really going on, as well as most of America. So they didn't know where Trump stood on this. They didn't know that he could have at least shed some light on the situation, because I have spoken to numerous of the elders within the camp there and said that, you could have addressed this directly to Trump, but they absolutely said, no, we're going to walk away if he even shows up here. So that was their position then. Now, things are different, because now this is all going to be happening on his watch. He might as well be president now already, even though he's not been sworn in, because there's so much turmoil going on right now in the United States and in his transitioning team of who's who and what's what, and who's going to be going to prison and who's violated this. Because the fact of the matter is, I said this on another radio show, and it seemed to click with people. You'll understand this, global government and climate control or green technology has always been the cover story for world government. If they really cared about the environment, they'd be doing something about it. And you know that I know that.
Yes.
They don't about that. They never have cared about that. That has nothing to do with anything. Not from an international banking cartel position. They don't give a damn about that. So if they really wanted to do that, they'd be doing it. Not waiting for an administration to come in and say, oh, we're going to fix it all now, and that's the way it is. No, we are controlled by the banking cartels that run and own this country. They're making the decisions. Donald Trump has to bow down to Israel, and he's got to bow down to the Rothschilds. Sorry, that's the ugly truth. That's the situation. As do Hillary if she was running the show as well. Suffice it to say, the real attention has to be put on Citibank, the big five banking cartels, all of them, because they're all completely corrupt, as we know. Phillips 66, whose primary shareholders are Warren Buffett. Bank of Japan, which is Rockefeller-controlled. Mitsubishi Corporation, which is an absolute monster of a corporation that's a gigantic, huge amounts of money. Those players need to be addressed directly. And now, as we're doing this, talking right now, there's protests going on throughout the United States at this moment. But do you think they're addressing the people that are financing this? No. It's very...
No, they're actually funded by the people that you just enumerated there, actually.
Right. Exactly. They don't know the full grasp of the situation, and I've yet to really see anybody go head-to-head with the bankers. Nobody. They won't touch it.
No, and this even goes back to the Occupy movement, which never could effectively articulate their position. Basically, again, another Soros-funded operation. But when you talk to the Occupy people, they were pissed off because they had consuming college loans. I mean, I talked to some of these kids, and, honestly, these kids were coming out of college with no job prospects and no future ahead of them. Some of them owing over $60,000 to $100,000 to these banks and these college loans that they had collateralized out. And they were not capable of formulating who the enemy was or what the point of this Occupy movement was. It's even worse now. The people that are in the streets in Los Angeles, any of the major cities right now, these are nothing more than paid protesters by the Soros groups who are basically pulling in the unemployed, the disenfranchised off of Craigslist, paying them $15 an hour to wander around and destroy stuff. Meanwhile, we have a legitimate protest that has been ongoing since, 6-7 months now, that has salient points, and yet at the same time, as you pointed out, the onus is now on us to communicate it. The onus is now on the people out there and the people on the ground to clearly and succinctly articulate the talking points about this to the American people, because the American people need to understand that this is about the nation itself. This is not just about Indian tribes or a pipeline. There are far bigger overarching issues involved with all of this.
Precisely. So this is the opportunity for everybody to come together, because, you want to make America great again, Donald? Really? Well, here's your shot, starting at the beginning. So really, everything's coming full circle, and the circle is a very important symbol to the Lakota. It's one of their emblems on their flag is the circle, because everything comes in full circle. And now everything's coming to full circle now, where we have a situation where our way of living, how we deal with each other, how we relate to each other as a country, as a sovereign nation, as brothers and sisters, everything's at stake, because our own water and millions of people's water is going to be affected by this. And there has been spills already that have got very little coverage at all. The fracking in Oklahoma, this whole central part of the United States is a mess.
As this protest was going on, I live here in a place called Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. There's a river that runs just below my home here called the Susquehanna. It is the river on which is located 3 Mile Island nuclear plant. This river, 4 weeks ago, experienced an oil spill that dumped 35,000 gallons of oil into this river, which is a major tributary going into the Chesapeake Bay. In that same window of time, not less than 2 weeks later, we had a refinery fire in North Carolina that shut down supply lines on the East Coast and jacked the price of gasoline up almost 10 cents a gallon overnight. So we are experiencing in real time the very effects of all of these very bad decisions that have been made on about our energy infrastructure, and the people still cannot see the connection between what's going on with the Standing Rock situation, what was bearing down on us as a result of the XL pipeline, which, to his credit, President Obama lampooned that, but it's still on the table in Donald Trump's platform. We have serious energy issues that need to be addressed as a result of all of the greed and all of the flatulence that's going on in this country over this energy situation.
Yeah, it's interesting that during the entire campaigns, and people's, backflipping and rah-rah-rahing over for whatever side they were from, these tribes, and generally American Indian tribes anyway, were just completely ignored. They weren't campaigned to. They weren't even visited. They weren't even spoken to. They were just ignored the entire time. Now, when I spoke to the Hillary people, when I mentioned this, their face just went blank. It's like I was staring into a refrigerator. I mean, nothing. And the guilt and the shame of their, idealized, mind-controlled, post-hypnotic bullshit that they'd been told, now it's been shattered. So now what we have here is an opportunity to put everybody's ass on the line. That includes President-elect Trump. That includes his predecessor as well, because we have the end of a culture, maybe, or the beginning of something great. And if you want to make America great again, America's not going to be able to ignore this situation from what is going on. I mean, I know there's conversations going on right now within the military, very high level people that know this is going to be coming to pass. And this is going to be a peaceful demonstration to unite everybody for once. And hopefully it will remind everybody where we came from and what we should be and what we can be. So one of the things, they're going to have 4 press conferences. This is going to take place from the December 4th to the 7th. And for any people that are veterans themselves or know of veterans, I'm going to repeat this email address numerous times during this talk. It's veteransstandingrock@gmail. veteransstandingrock@gmail. And if veterans email that, they will receive the operations order written out, which will include the entire plan as where they're going to stay, where buses will be picking them up, what the plan is, what they're to wear. There will be no drugs. There will be no guns. This is going to be a peaceful assembly. There's going to be ceremony there. It will be interfacing with the Lakota Sioux and multiple other tribes there, unifying everybody and talking to each other. How about that for once? How about we actually speak to each other for once in a lifetime, since these people have been ignored. And then now they're not going to be ignored. And I'm going to tell you why they're not going to be ignored. There's going to be some speeches that are being formulated right now that is going to hit the heart not only of America, but the entire world, and the people that have been controlling this world, polluting it, destroying the environment, and going rah, rah, rah to everybody, telling them we have to go into this green economy. Well, we need to do it our way under the guise of world government. That's going to be destroyed, and a new vision is going to start through the eyes of the true environmentalists and the people that have always had the earth be their religion, the Lakota Sioux and other tribes. So what they're going to come out and announce basically is a call for many forms of technology. They're going to ask for solar, they're going to ask for wind, they're going to ask for cold fusion, they're going to ask for zero-point energy, they're going to ask for anything that we can work together as a society that will create jobs, create a kind of interactive thinking tack, cooperative thinking tack of dealing with big business and the small man, and then putting it right in the face of the people that are doing this. Because we know, you and I know, and other people know, probably in your audience, that money today is obsolete. You know as well as I knew that gold-backed currencies, whatever this gigantic recurrency of the setting of the recurrency internationally and all this other stuff, that's fine and great and everything, but when you've got free energy, it's going to obsolesce that. Not in the immediate, but at the highest level of decision-making process. So I can get into a room of economists and banker people and destroy their argument. And they're going to have to deal with it. And people need to be aware of this now, that we're in a new position for humanity. A great position, but it needs to be discussed from multiple vantage points and multiple, we're going to have to kind of dismantle our cultural conditioning that we've gone through. What we're going through right now, what I see in the street, actually I think it's great, because for the first time ever, people are thinking about locally, talking to their local Congress people, talking to their local, because they're all bent out of shape because Trump's coming in. So, because I mentioned on another radio network, I said, this is great that he's coming in. He may not be the best person, he may not be perfect, but now everybody's going to watch this guy like a hawk. and they'd be watching every move.
Exactly. Yes. And not only that, but whatever Donald Trump is, or whatever Donald Trump becomes in the scope of this next 4 years, this is a disruption to the system. This is a reboot, because quite honestly, I don't know about you, I watched the election last week, and what occurred there was a pivot that we've not seen. We've not seen this kind of resounding message sent from the people. I mean, look, yes, there's voter fraud. Yes, machines were tampered with. Yes, we have the whole mess that goes into this really horrible system that has evolved out of the original republic. But in the midst of all this, that resounding message echoed through regardless of what else was in the mechanics of it. And so Trump has a window of opportunity, but the action that's going on now, in my mind, is really a convergence. When you were talking about people need to get together, people need to speak. I don't know about you, but as a kid, I remember the riots of the 60s. And I remember the people in Chicago chanting, "The whole world's watching." We need to have the whole world watching once again, because we're not just standing up for the United States or the Lakota Sioux or any of the other tribes here. We're standing up for the world in this whole action, because this planet and this energy delivery system that we've had ongoing now for over 150 years based on petroleum is not sustainable. It is killing us. It will kill itself. And it will take down all the economic systems of all the Western nations in the process of doing so.
It was interesting watching how all this thing unfolds, because you've got legitimate arguments for us kind of moving from a fossil fuel economy, global economy, to something else. And when I was in Washington, D.C., I had a meeting with some people with real high credentials. Some were CIA, some were admirals in the military, some were really famous published authors, some were news people in D.C., some were actively involved at the White House, and there was a group of, I would say 100 people in a room. And I remember them, they're all sitting down, everybody has a meal, everybody's talking to each other, and then the speaker comes out. And one of the questions that the speaker posed was, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, what a bunch of fucking morons these people are. This guy stands up and he goes, "We don't understand why people are responding to Trump." And I'm sitting in this room with all people that are complete skilled operators in their fields, very skilled, right? And this guy stands up and says this, and nobody could answer. Nobody could answer. And I was like, wow, that goes to tell you how completely out of touch these people are with the regular person in the street. Because those people that I was talking to, they knew about the technology we have. They knew that the banks are, basically run us and own our ass. They knew all that stuff, but they didn't want to talk about it. And they certainly didn't understand why so many people were responding to Trump. I was amazed. I walked out of there, and the people that brought me there, I was like, oh my God, what? These are the people that are running the show. These are people that are elected officials, completely out of touch with everybody. It's incredible. I'll never forget that. That they couldn't understand why people were tapped into him. And for me, it was quite obvious. We're pissed. People are pissed. We don't like the establishment. We don't like being lied to. We hate politicians. Well, most of us are broke. Most of us are in debt. Our veterans get shit on as soon as they come after working in the military. They're never taken care of. We've got a massive homeless problem. We're not number one in anything anymore, and we're running around augmented by electronics and advanced weaponry to prepare us for basically termination. Yeah, that's it. And
that really is it. I mean, that's the ultimate bleak scenario. It's just, we'll just call the population, and that's not the solution. That will not solve the problem. And and I know that there's a bigger game afoot here. That ultimately, in order for the people on this planet to evolve, the fundamentals of our socioeconomic system have to change, and the two things that this all pivots on is money and energy, the two tips of the spear, if you will, that are the cause of all the wars, the cause of all the issues with debt and poverty, and why people are on this treadmill that they can never get off of. And look, James, you and I have talked for years. You've been on the show. You and I both know that the game changer is, in fact, free energy, L.E.N.R, all of the other modalities that bring us to a place where we're not dependent on consumption of what's inside the earth and this carbon-based system.
Right. There's a big disconnect between the general public of not just this country, but many countries, because
yes.
I did meet with the Chinese. I met with the Chinese government in D.C., and they were remarkably humble, direct, and kind of sad when they looked in my face and said, "We won't make it in another 100 years. We won't be here. We have to fix our situation and how we use energy. Period." And this guy, this particular gentleman, was getting on a plane the next day and flying back to Japan to report into his superiors. And he said, certain provinces are going to go for this and certain ones are not. And there are massive slush funds and organizations of the so-called industrialists, and most of those industrialists we've all heard of in one context or another, whether it be Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Sir Richard, Mr. Virgin Airlines, Sir Richard Brandt, And they're on a long list of people that go to these huge meetings at Davos and everything saying, we need to clean up the planet and clean up the earth and do all this other stuff. Meanwhile, the National Defense Authorization Act is passed for 2017, and they have to list L.E.N.R in there because America isn't getting any funding for it, even though we do have it behind the national security curtain. And
exactly.
I know that because I met with one of the top admirals and DARPA itself, and we've got it.
I was told this in 2011 by somebody who was inside the Navy at the time. In fact, a former Navy SEAL who told me flat out, this was a guy who studied physics at the University of Utah, who knew Fleischmann and Pons and knew what happened to the basic patents after they shut down Fleischmann and Pons, and the fact that basically the Navy came in and appropriated the technology. And let me just pose a rhetorical what if out there. When's the last time anybody's talked about nuclear submarines in the context of anything in this country? Doesn't that kind of make you wonder a little bit about what the hell they really are powering things on? Is that too provocative?
Exactly. The fact is, the powers that be and the banking cartels that have controlled the countries and controlled the industry and controlled civilization and how to play in this whole thing, it's over for them. They know it. I told them when I met with them in London, it's done. So we've got this fulcrum kind of pinpoint of the north, east, west, and south, the news, in Standing Rock. This point right there is going to be the discussion point of where civilization is going to go, who's been controlling it, who needs to step aside, and connecting the general person, the common person, to our elected officials and holding them accountable. Because we got a situation now where we could go into a violent civil war and all be ignited by, staging, of course, or we could go into something that could be really great. However, it's the will of the people. You have to play a part in it these days. So everybody has to get involved on some level. So what will take place in Standing Rock is going to be not a spiritual revolution, but a spiritual evolution. That's what I would call it. And more discussion and more planning, because right now, one of the big stories that came out in the free energy world was the fact that the Financial Times of London was bought up by the Japanese,
right.
by a company called Nikkei, who put out in the last month a pretty substantial story saying that Mitsubishi, who's also financing this pipeline, is very involved with L.E.N.R. Very involved, and they've reproduced L.E.N.R. multiple times, and I know exactly what they're doing. And we're way further along than anybody knows. And in fact, it's operational in some places behind the national security curtain. And it's time to pull these things out and let the integration of the process of emergence begin. And this is going to begin the discussion of it and the education of it at Standing Rock. I assure you of that. And now the White House does know that, as of today, for sure. So they're going to have to deal with this. And the people need to understand that there's much, much bigger stakes now that are happening. And the veterans that show up there, I might add that I want to thank them in advance for showing up, but they're going to play an important role of not only being taken care of by the people that they work for, but also being kind of be totally viewed. Our military is going to be completely viewed quite differently after this, with veterans standing there, because I did have long discussions with Wesley Clark about it, and he sees this more as a spiritual renaissance and evolution of sorts that will help the world transition. So it's ironic that we have the third poorest nation in the world that's basically been treated like crap their entire existence and ignored by everybody, and that's the worst part, until now. And we're going to have this meeting from the 4th to the 7th there. And the media is already showing up early, and there is going to be a massive publicity, and not just here, but I have 3 other radio shows lined up, and there's going to be another press release that goes out, and I'll be speaking to the British press as well about this, so that the world can now stand up and say, hey, okay, we need to do things differently here now, and we need to start bringing in this technology, and bye-bye Rothschilds. I doubt they're going to go away that easily, because what's going to be happening, the only way this is going to work is if it's a win-win for the scumbags that have done all this, so they have a play in it, and they won't be thrown to the side, because I've had hundreds of hours of conversations with engineers, lawyers, business people, and government people, and it seems the only way this is going to work is if everybody has a play in it. So it's a win-win, basically.
Well, here's kind of the view that I've kind of taken from this. We have a legacy system on this planet right now that's based on petroleum. The technologies in play still require the use of carbon-based fuels, gas, oil, even coal, and I'm actually in favor of coal right now, because I see that as a viable short-term bridge for some of our large-scale energy needs. But we have to stand up and realize that we are post-carbon, that the planet itself, just based on the things that have happened, if you look at Fukushima, which is the nightmare scenario, the China syndrome on steroids, all of these pipelines, you look at the Gulf of Mexico oil spill, whether that was deliberate or an accident, all of these things are pointing to one thing. This planet, our nest, our home, cannot sustain itself under the weight of these toxic energy platforms that we're presently running. Exactly.
It's over. It has to end. Sooner or later, it has to end. And the Lakota Sioux and all the irony of it are going to be the bridge to that. It's amazing that everybody's got a street in their town that is engineered wrong, and everybody says, they should put a stop sign there. You should put a stop sign there. And everybody says that, and everybody knows that in town. And then finally, when somebody's killed, then they put a stop sign up.
Right.
Okay. So it's kind of like now that we've had massive violence, massive human rights violations, children that have been shot, women that have been pepper sprayed in the face, people have been put into cages, every major violation rule of law has been violated, complete, total being ignored by both presidential candidates. That's enough right there to definitely set up a platform to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to begin anew in a completely new way. Now, it's up really up to harnessing the dissatisfaction of all these kind of brainwashed media casualties made up of all the millions of voters that are completely living in Disneyland, that don't even know this technology exists, don't even know who's been running the country, don't even know how our financial system works, don't even know that our entire economics is based on fiction, don't even know that their leaders are misleaders, don't even know that the powers behind the throne of these banking cartels are... You know what they're doing.
Look at
I don't want to get into that part.
Look at the level of revelation that occurred even in the final week, the final days of this 2016 election campaign, and what came out of WikiLeaks. What was being shown to us about the ritual abuse, the satanic ritual abuse that's going on, pedophilia, spirit cooking, all of these sick, twisted, distorted perversions behind the scenes of power in the government, in the banking industry, and look, you and I both know, because we've done this for so long, it's a wearying task, but we have seen people wake up. And we are beginning to realize the fruits of some of the work that's been going on for some of us over 20 years. And it's not lost on me that a lot of the work that you've been doing, because you've worked in the background on things that nobody has any idea about. First off, to the veterans out there, and again, this is being posited to veterans to show up for this, because you're the living proof right now that the government only has ever viewed any of us as disposable assets. If the Native American people were the long-view historical symbol of abuse and being thrown to the side in the name of so-called manifest destiny, the veterans in this country are the current level of collateral damage to the system, because they basically said, we don't even care enough about you to give you a decent VA system. So,
right.
This is the coming together of groups that have been pummeled by this present system, and once they stand together, join hands, we have the beginning of a chain that can reach around the planet.
Absolutely. Here's our chance, not only as a country to get back to where we should be, but as a planet. I mean, it's really remarkable. I mean, when the end of the Mayan calendar happened, when turning 2012, and to me, that meant it was the end of the cycle, and a new cycle was going to begin. This is part of the new cycle. This is part of the new cycle where everybody, the Great Awakening, is underway. Some of them is taking a hell of a lot longer than others. Some of them don't like being awake, and they're angry as hell.
Yeah, that's your first sign right there. You're real pissed off.
Right, so real pissed off. We don't have a future. We don't have any money. We don't have any jobs. We can't do anything now. I don't know what I'm doing next. We're the biggest debtor nation on the planet. We've got a TV celebrity as a president now. I mean, I've had, prior to talking to you today, I scanned all the LA and Texas radio stations and Nevada. Everyone's talking about the Trump thing. But they're also talking about, we're in the WikiLeaks, they're also talking about all the Satanism and Luciferianism all the banking cartels are involved in, and all that whole mess. Now, it's amazing to me, and why people can't understand that just because you're in a position of authority does not mean you're telling the truth. And people that are in positions of authority that have been robbing, raping, pillaging, and violating everybody, the first thing they do, if you want to maintain that position and have all that power, is you've got to be a fake do-gooder. You've got to go on talk shows and kiss babies. You've got to give away some of your cash to benefits. You've got to be pictured everywhere smiling as if everything's okay before you go to your next child sacrifice ceremony. That's how they do it.
Exactly. Yes.
That's how they do it. Listen, we're doing Jay Leno tonight. Tomorrow I'll be at the child sacrifice thing in Denver. We'll go up to the place. We'll have all the security. How many kids you got? Oh, you got 6. Okay, fine. All right, I'll be there. I got full blood, everything ready to go. And that's how they do it, and that's how they've been getting away with it. Because only puny secrets need protection. Big secrets are protected by public incredulity, right? Marshall
Exactly.
That's exactly right. And it's all coming out now. So this is a prime opportunity for all veterans. Again, the email address is veteransstandingrock@gmail.com, veteransstandingrock@gmail.com, and they're going to receive the full ordinance and report about what the game plan is. This is going to be a beautiful moment in U.S. history, and I think that once the cameras are there and the media covers this, as well as all the live footage they're going to get on Facebook and everything like this, this is going to seriously change not only the way America handles itself, but what the decisions are going to be made in terms of how this thing is going to unfold. I'm kind of optimistic. I'll know when I'm there, but I'm kind of optimistic that this is going to be, we're in enough pain now and disgust that most people are in. This is the perfect time. Confusion's the doorway to understanding, and the confusion, disgust, distortion, deletion, manipulation, lies, all that stuff is going to propel people to look into new directions and ask new questions.
You in a text message the other day pointed out to me that a lot of the things that have leaked out, and especially regarding the pedophilia and things like that, these were all things that were talked about 40, 50 years ago by Walter Bauer in Operation Mind Control.
Right. We knew. I mean, he gave his life. I mean, that came out way before people could even handle it. And when he went in depth with me on who the players were and what was actually going on, he had his head bowed down on his chair, looking at me, and he closed the door, and he couldn't even bear to raise his voice to talk to me about it. He almost whispered it to me. And he goes, "Here are the files." And then he just looked at me and he goes, "Well, this person's doing this, and this person doing this," and he just was real matter of fact and direct about it. And my jaw dropped to the ground. And later on, after I looked at all the files, heard all the phone calls, met with some of the people, I'm like, yeah, this is really going on. And, the Franklin cover-up, the general public, all they need to do is look that up, review it, and take that and magnify it by about 100,000, and that's what we're dealing with today.
Yes, exactly. And, you've... A lot of people don't know that you've been bequeathed a great deal of information and your mission, which came as a result of Walter Bauer and Russell Means as well. And it's not lost on me that we're now seeing the convergence of what I think on the landscape at one time looked, how do you put these things together? Satanic ritual abuse, mind control, pedophilia, free energy, the plight of the Native Americans, the plight of indigenous people anywhere. But now we see it. If Standing Rock can be a symbol of anything, it probably is a convergence that meets, in this place in America that's so symbolic and so sacred, and so infused with the spirit of oppression that represents America. We have an opportunity right now to change this, to turn this around, to take all of that evil and drain the power out of it and reverse the current back to the people and allow everybody to have a better life and get out from underneath this tyranny.
Amen. And the draining of the swamp is going on at Standing Rock. Literally, I kid you not.
Yeah.
That's what's really going on, because not even Trump wants to look at that. Not yet, anyway. Because I remember when I was out there speaking to the 7 council fires, I was introduced to a woman there who's the great-granddaughter of Sitting Bull. And I was sitting next to her, and I didn't know who she was when I was sitting next to her. And she sat next to me, and really nice lady, and we started talking. She said, well, I said, how are you doing? I said, well, not very good. I said, what's the matter? And, well, both my children have been taken away from me. And I said, what? Oh, and I still don't know who she is. And this lady comes over to me and says, yeah, you need to talk to James about what's happened with the children, what they've done. And I didn't know that they were her children. I began to tell her the process on when they steal these children and what the plan was, what they do to them. So I tell her the whole thing in a totally uncensored manner. Oh. Little did I know that they were her children that were taken away, and Child Protective Services, they're in on the whole thing. They've had to suffer that abuse too, and it broke my heart. I'll never forget that moment, looking into her eyes, because she smiled at me with tears welting up in her eyes, trying to maintain some level of dignity, hoping that what I was saying was not true and her children were still alive. But the courts were not helping them because she was poor. And Child Protective Services, to come around and find out that you're poor, have all the reason to take your children away from you. Why? Because they got to fill a quota from all the hungry eaters that need these children to abuse them as they circulate them into child trafficking.
Right, and first they monetize them, then they sell them off to the child trafficker. This is what people don't understand about the back-end banking system that goes on in the courts and administrative law offices, is that there's a whole financial chain of events that happens whereby human lives, literally human souls, are monetized.
Yeah, I had a huge meeting with a gigantic investment firm in Utah, and they wanted to know how I got into this whole thing. And I told them, I said, listen, if we're going to shut the doors on child abuse and pedophilia and child trafficking, then we're not talking anything about finances, because that's what it is. That's what it is. International banking, that's what it finances. They're the ones doing it. They've always been the ones doing it. And again, I just got these pitch-wolf faces, and you could hear a pin drop in the room. But I wasn't going to let them waddle around and hide from that truth, and nor should anybody else as well. Because for all that stuff needs to come out front and center right now while we're in this position where everybody's pointing the finger at everybody for everything that ever's gone wrong in the United States and everything's wrong. No, anybody we should be doing and pointing the finger at is ourselves for allowing this crap to continue. Period.
Exactly. I think one of the things here as we kind of close this out, I think deep down inside, despite the pain and the division that's going on because of this media-driven traumatic event we call a national election, I think deep down inside most people would like to find a commonality, a point where we can agree again and come together. And I think this is it. I think for the veterans out there, you have an opportunity to make one last stand that puts the issue very succinctly. If we have fought all these wars, if we have sacrificed human life on battlefields, and we have raised our flag on foreign lands for this long, to not end war and to finally liberate the people would be the tragedy of all history. But you have an opportunity to stand up one more time as a veteran. For the people out there who are standing with Standing Rock, you have to do what you can. Part of it is you can help disseminate information. We can begin to educate other people. This is something that needs to be talked about over the water cooler, over the coffee container at work, however you communicate with people. The major media is going to be drugged, kicking and screaming to this, largely because they don't want to look at it, because it jeopardizes their interests, and it goes to the core of their white guilt as well. And I mean that in a very serious way, that we need to get over the denial in this country about what happened with the Native American people, and we also need to deal with the fact that we've sacrificed our own children in wars and then turned them into a system that didn't care enough to deal with the PTSD and all the physical ailments that occurred as a result of being in those wars. This is the perfect storm.
Exactly. So one more time, I'll give that the email address. It's veteranstandingrock@gmail.com. I've sent you the operations order, Randy, so
exactly.
Feel free to post it wherever you want.
Yes.
And distribute it everywhere. Okay?
That's going to actually roll over this interview as we put it out on video, and this is going to go out to every point that I can push out. All the contact information will be wherever you hear this audio, see this video. You can also access this information in text wherever it's posted. Folks, this is an opportunity. Do not look at what's occurring in this country as anything less than a window open right now, and it's very brief before America wants to go back to business. Stand up, be Be a messenger. Be an educator. Be a voice for the future instead of looking in the rearview mirror at the atrocities of the past. I'm Randy Moggins. This is Off Planet Radio. The truth is out there. It's inside you. Now stand up and go do something. We'll be back with another show very soon.
This is Off Planet Radio.